Welcome to another broadcast of the Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Who has a dog today? Good morning.
Hello.
Welcome to the October 18th, 2007 meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Our quote for today, it sort of ties into NOACA. The art of negotiation, never cut what you can untie.
Very
I said,
good.
never cut what you can untie.
Very good. Keep that handy.
Yes. There she goes now.
Give me a kiss.
Call him.
I think she wants to give me a kiss.
No, that's okay. Then we can-
Is this a cutie or what?
That's too bad.
This is a 3-month-old Beagle mix, female.
Look at that tail. Oh,
Yeah, didn't know you
she's
could
yours,
do that.
Lori. Sweetest day Saturday.
They said she's housebroken, good with other animals and with children, so I think she'll be available Saturday at 3, is that right? So come down to the Lorain County Dog Kennel and pick a pet for you.
Madam Clerk?
At 11 o'clock, we're going to have an investment advisory meeting. Conform boundaries, petition map, and legal description were received on October 5th, 2007 from Overland Law Director Eric Sievers pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 50307 to include recently annexed property and make the boundary of said Overland Townships identical with the corporate limits, so to the municipality. Overland City Council passed the following ordinances which accepted the various annexations on certain properties. The resolution number R0709 CMS petitioned the board to conform such boundaries. Ordinance 06105 AC CMS accepted 124.616 acres from Pittsfield Township, that was Scott property. Ordinance 0754 AC CMS accepted 4.67 acres from Pittsfield Township, Burgess and McNauer. Ordinance 0755 AC CMS accepted 70.58 acres from Pittsfield to Hendricks property, which was also amended to include the exact acreage from the one just mentioned. October 4th, forwarded to the county engineer auditor for review. October 17th, county engineer reviewed the petition to conform and extend the current boundaries of Overland Township due to annexations of property from New Russia and Pittsfield, and the map does show the proper boundary caused by said annexations.
Any comments from the county engineer's office? Bill?
No, what was filed is acceptable to our office.
Okay. Any comments from the attorneys involved? Mr. Sievers?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name is Eric Sievers. I'm the Oberlin Law Director, and I would refer to this as a housekeeping matter. I appear before you periodically to file these conformity of boundaries petitions, and all we're doing is making the city boundaries conform to what is a paper township, Oberlin Township, after annexations have occurred. We have 3 annexations that occurred since I last appeared before you on a conformity of boundaries petition. If you approve the petition, the property will become part of the city for all purposes, that is, for taxing purposes, voting purposes, and also important to the city for fire protection purposes. Right now, if the conformity of boundary is not approved, these people, and there are, I understand from the Board of Elections, several people that do live in this area, the annexed area, they will vote not only on city issues but township issues, And because of that, the Board of Elections will have to establish a new voting district just for these 2 or 3 people that live in the area that was annexed. In regard to fire protection, the property was in the Wellington Fire District prior to annexation, and if it remains in the township and also is in the city, then you can see that there might be a bit of confusion between who provides fire protection, or possibly both of the fire services provide fire protection to the area. So as a housekeeping matter, we would like you to conform the boundaries so that these properties are in the city. I should probably say that these properties were annexed to the city as a result of what is called a Type 1 expedited annexation petition. That's an 100% property owner petition that is also accompanied by an annexation agreement between the city and Pittsfield Township. The township has agreed to allow annexation in these certain areas, and in exchange the city has agreed that we will share certain revenues with the township once the properties are annexed. So I ask that you please approve the petition as submitted, if you would.
I'd just like to comment that that was a JED that you referred to before JEDs were even heard of in the Ohio legislature. So Pittsfield Township, New Russia, and the city of Oberlin were very instrumental in being pioneers in that field.
I must say we did have we more recently updated that agreement, and I must say that Commissioner Blair had a little bit to do with that too, and I think it turned out for the positive. You might have recalled that we had this issue with a Walmart that was going to locate somewhere around Oberlin. Well, it did locate, but the city and the township sat down and resolved that dispute, and I think we're going forward together, moving together on economic development in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Severs.
Thank you.
Any comments from Pittsfield Township or City of Oberlin? Well, then I'll make the motion to approve the conformity of boundaries.
Any further discussion? Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Next is request ODNR of Natural Areas and Preserves to study the Vermilion River for designation as a component of the state scenic river system and declaring intent to cooperate with ODNR, other agencies, and units of government in the preservation of the Vermilion River should the study request result in designation. And Mr. Martin is here from Lorain County Metro Parks.
It's your show, Dan.
Good morning, Dan.
It would be remiss of me not to bring visual aids, of course. I'm here representing, I'm Dan Martin, I'm the director of the Lorain County Metro Parks. You have before you a resolution request from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. I'm here to speak on behalf of that for the Board of Park Commissioners. On Tuesday, we passed a resolution of support for this measure. Very quickly for you and the members of the community, the Wild and Scenic Rivers program has been in the state of Ohio for the past approximately 35 years. There are 14 wild and scenic rivers in the state of Ohio, 3 designated wild rivers. That is the highest possible quality. Little Beaver Creek, the Cocosine River, and the Darby River near Columbus, Ohio. And then there's 11 scenic rivers and then some additional what's called recreational quality streams and rivers in the state of Ohio. What that allows us to do in the state is to recognize the quality of our natural resources. You know, this movement was started back in the 60s and 70s across the country. We think it's been a very successful program, and it's brought an awful lot of notoriety and recognition. But I'd like to take you back to the 1970s here in Lorain County. At that time, the Vermilion River was actually studied as a wild river, the highest quality natural resource in our area, and certainly one of the highest quality natural resource areas in the state of Ohio. Unfortunately, as you can remember, back in the 1970s, we had some rather rough economic times here. We were unable and did not feel at that time that it was, with all the other issues, the state of Ohio never moved forward with the designation of the Vermilion. Sometimes later is better than never. 35 years later, the state's back today looking to designate the Vermilion. We think that, ladies and gentlemen, the Vermilion is gone without this recognition way too long. The Vermilion River is approximately 67 miles long. We certainly believe the stretch in Lorain County, the 17 miles in Lorain County, is absolutely the highest quality in the state of Ohio. It's loaded with it's loaded with endangered species. It's vastly protected, and we would certainly like to see the state designate it. We think it would have a tremendous impact on travel and tourism. If you were on the river this last week, you'd see the trout fishermen out there and the park visitors, people there from multiple states to do that. And the real issue, and I'm sure anybody in our audience might ask, is what impact does that have on government regulation? The government regulation affects two real parties. It affects the owners, which largely is the county park system, and the county engineer and his bridge projects. I'm very pleased to say that I feel extremely comfortable that King Kearney's office has always done a great job in managing the bridges and streams in our county and how they affect our rivers and streams. Anytime we've asked the county engineer to do anything that affects our rivers and streams, he's been very cooperative, and I feel that they would have no trouble meeting our needs here.
Just walked
He
in.
just
Oh,
walked
my
in.
goodness gracious. Mr. Kearney, I will expect that donation later. But we do believe that is very important. I just want to call your attention to the map, if I can. The 17 miles of the Vermilion River in Lorain County, stretching from north of the Route 2 bridge, down through Mill Hollow, down towards Dean Road, where we cross out of the county, down to Otto Sheffley's, and then back into Lorain County, down through the Lorain County Boy Scout Camp, back down to Kipton. So that's considered the main stem. I'm sorry. I'm usually plenty loud. The main stem and the east branch, absolutely spectacular. The west branch goes down into Erie and Huron County, down through Wakeman, and is obviously of, again, tremendous quality. And finally, the other map that I brought you to show you, folks, our county park system is 50 years old this year, and we started 50 years ago with a 120-acre donation of what we all know is Mill Hollow and Bacon Woods. So this little piece of land right here started your Lorain County Metro Parks back in 1957. Today, we are the stewards of about 1,100 acres on the Vermilion River, almost 17 miles long, and I would simply encourage you to support the study by ODNR. We think it's long overdue that this river be recognized. We believe that without a doubt we have not only one of the best, but the finest river in the state of Ohio. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Commissioner Blair?
I have none. I think it's marvelous.
Yeah, it's a great program, Dan. Betty and I attended when you had ODNR up here. Yeah, so I think it's a great idea. Support it. And then, as Commissioner Blair said, next to Black River.
We have River Otter in French Creek Park. I'm sure you know. Your people were there.
Yes.
So we'll work towards that next.
Absolutely.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, also move.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Thank you, Dan. Let
Thank
us
you,
know
Ms.
what we
Martin.
can do to help.
Thank you.
Under Resolutions Number 2, Job and Family Services Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Advances and repayments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Travel expenses.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cordez?
I do have a few personnel issues at Job and Family Services and Golden Acres that I wish to discuss with the board. Also wish to discuss a pending purchase of real estate. And I think that would be it for my executive session issues. So at the conclusion of our regular board business, I'd like you to have an executive session. Those issues are allowable under the Sunshine Law. and I'll look through my folder just in case there's something else. I can amend it under my line item. Thank you.
Request Lorain County Budget Commission to approve the movement of inside millage from general fund to bond retirement. Current millage is 1.3 to general fund and 0.3 to bond fund. New rates will be 1.2 to general fund and 0.4 to bond fund.
Mr. Cordez, comments, please?
Thank you, Commissioner. Actually, I'm going to ask you to table this until next week. I'm still looking at the numbers. We got a little bit ahead of ourselves. We're definitely going to have to move some additional inside millage to bond retirement. I'm trying to shave it down as close as possible so that we can continue to send the maximum amount of money to operations for the county. Last year, we started the year with a few $100,000 in the bond retirement fund that we used to keep our inside millage payment lower this year. But as you know, each year we've been upping the amount of inside millage dedicated to debt service because we've been more fully loading on the Justice Center debt that was incurred a few years ago. We're pretty much going to end the year with about $250,000 in that account. I think we're probably going to have to go up at least, this says a 1/10, I'm hoping it's half of that, and we'll probably end the year similar to the way we began it. I'm thinking there's going to need to be an additional maybe $400,000 in there. Now, I thought it would be a lot more than that, but I'm still looking at the energy conservation bonds and the revenue from that. One way or another, you can anticipate probably about $400,000 less revenue next year that will have to be dedicated to debt service this year because we're just out of the amount of reserves we had there. But I also want to be careful that we don't get into a positive arbitrage situation with having too much slippage in those funds. The hard part is we're trying to look at what the revenue is going to be next year because the inside millage is dedicated on the revenue next year. So we're really trying to be very tight on this. Right now, at best guess, if we keep it the way it is, and the revenue stayed strong and there was no decrease in that, we would end the year with about $2,000 in that account. That's just too close for my comfort. We were talking $6-7 million worth of payments, and that to be that precise is we're just not able to do that. So I think that once we load the energy conservation in there, we're going to need an additional $400,000. I'll have better information next week. I'm going over the sheets, and I will brief you guys individually on that for the need to do that. We have until November 14th, Lisa, to do this. But it's just one of those things, as we go into all of our issues with economics in the county, it's another area that we've been able to use some reserves that were built up over time that have now become depleted and has nothing to do with this board. It was just a strategy adopted several years ago. So what it all means after they get done, it means less money next year on the revenue side.
Wonderful. Move to table it then. Teresa, you take it off.
Yep. Approve the payment in comp time to L&D WAC bailiff for the City of Valeria for 20 hours to be $200.33, which reflects the county's 2/5 share.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
And this one should say Erie Coast rather than Erie Shores. But award contract to Erie Coast Construction, Vermillion, in the amount of $6,765 to Kathleen M. Jacob at 37370 West Royalton Road, Grafton, in order to receive a grant for a roof replacement. 4 quotes were received, this being the most responsive, complying with the specification. Includes 10% contingency for any unforeseen change orders and will be paid from the CDBG FY06 home repair account.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Amendment Resolution 07593 adopted August 16, 2007, awarding contract to J.A. Kilby Enterprises Wellington in the amount of $5,489 on behalf of Carol and Shelley Horrell at 4491 Elyria Avenue, Sheffield Township, to receive a grant for a roof replacement. 2 quotes were received, this being the most responsive, complying with specifications, and will be paid from the CDBG FY06 home repair account. The amendment is to reflect the total cost was $5,489, not $4,990.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Under Golden Acres, approve and enter an agreement with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Local 436 Golden Acres LPN Unit effective September 20, 2007 through December 23, 2009, case 2006 MED 090915.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Under the Record Center, Lynn had called me this morning and said that the boxes just went up another 20 cents, so she would like the board to do it at cost rather than putting an actual amount in there, because every year it goes up for the box storage itself, rather than coming back next month or next year and putting it up again. if that's okay with the board.
Can we put a cap on that, though, not to increase by 10% or something? I mean, I hate to have the box company charging us $4 a box by March, and we just said per price.
Here's my problem with this resolution completely. We're starting to become a service agency, which is what we desire to do for various entities within Lorain County. I'm having extensive dialogue with the city of Elyria to use the Record Center as their records depository, and we're already working with several townships, and we're working with some of the libraries. This growth was anticipated when we made the investment in the Record Center to be able to meet the needs of government entities within Lorain County. It was always envisioned to be much more than just Lorain County's depository. And I'm very pleased with the performance of the staff there and the directions that we're taking. My concern, though, is that we're also a cost recovery unit that needs to provide a centralized service at an efficient cost, so we don't have duplication of resources within Lorain County, but we also do not want to have the general fund burden with providing these services to other government entities. I really want this resolution crafted in a way that allows us to recapture our costs that fluctuate rather than having them fixed and then trying to play catch-up with those costs. And I also want to be able to go real-time with the departments within the county that are using us, that have the ability to pay for those services that we provide, rather than catching up with an indirect cost after 2 years. We need the funding now. We don't need it 2 years from now. So we're gonna structure that in a way to capture those additional costs. With the wording at cost there, I would rather have the prosecutor's office look at something that is legally binding, but also gives us the ability to go up and down if the price goes down on some kind of quarterly or annual basis, so that we don't have to revisit this all the time and that we don't lose any money on this arrangement.
So we want to table this for a week while we
Jerry, I know you looked at this
Figure
once
it.
before.
Okay. We'll review it. I haven't reviewed this specific resolution, but
I understood that the prosecutors had looked, is it just a library contract that they looked at?
Number 17, the prosecutors looked at. Number 18 is the one that actually puts out all the costs for the microfilming, the record toolbox, the actual cost to the departments for using the service.
Lisa?
I had Jerry look into the fact of them charging $4 for a pool for children's services. That was what my letter was to him. As far as the increase, I wasn't aware of any of that.
Okay, but I guess I've assigned this task to you to work with Lynn on this with the cost, correct? Will you go back and revisit this? I thought, once I saw it on the agenda, I thought that you had taken care of this, so would you ensure that we get in front of this for next week?
Yeah.
Thank you. With that, Commissioners, I would ask that we table this to next week.
So do you want to do the same with 17, because those exact costs
They
that are
tie
in number
together.
Yeah, they're the
16
same.
are in number 17.
That,
the
and
pool
also on
on
number
17
7.
also?
Well, we're going to obtain services from the Record Center, which is directly to that resolution. So, I mean, table them both, pull them, let's go to 18.
I have one further comment on 17, and I want to talk to council again on that. I'm not sure that we need a contract with a governmental entity to do this. I think that we can suffice by doing an MOU that allows us to just state, the things that the working relationship. I don't know that every time we're going to have to modify and redo contracts every time we want to provide services. That gets very cumbersome to track and worry about, and we can't do contracts that are in perpetuity and so forth. So I'm going to look at that too, and I think, Lisa, I talked to you about that yesterday. Then want you to look with Jerry on that too, okay? Thank you.
Under Job and Family Services, instruct clerk to advertise for requests for proposals for classroom training, job placement, and job retention program and work experience program. Notice to be in the Chronicle on October 22nd, 29th. Open proposals on November 5th at 2 p.m. in the Commissioners' back conference room.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
MRDD requesting that Lorain County Auditor pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5705.03 and to certify to Lorain County Board of Commissioners the total current tax valuation of the county and the dollar amount of revenue that would be generated by 1.6875 mills for the purpose of an MRDD replacement and a renewal levy for 5 years, and this would be on the April something 08 ballot, or March 08 ballot.
Do we need comments from anyone on this?
Oh,
No,
nine.
this is to get the figures from the county auditor. After
wait,
that,
you're right.
we'll
Okay.
take action on whether or not to proceed.
Okay.
Yes.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Blair.
Aye. No. Why did you wait till now?
I was told to.
Oh, you were
When my
told
clerk
to.
tells me to do something, I do it.
Oh.
I have fourth wife.
The Lorain County Board of Commissioners has a proclamation for Tom Mangan, and I got the dubious honor of reading this proclamation probably because next to you, Tom, I've been here the longest. It says, in the matter of expressing our appreciation and best wishes to Tom Mangan on his retirement.
Can we bring him up here first?
I think we should,
Yeah,
Mr.
Tom,
Chairman.
can you come up, please?
From the Lorain County Prosecutor's Office. So if you'll just focus on Tom while I read. Did you hear that, Hal? No, Hal. Focus on Tom. There. Thank you, Hal. Whereas Tom Mangan announced his retirement from his position as Assistant Lorain County Prosecutor effective October 18th, which is today. Whereas Tom is being recognized for 25 years of service to Lorain County beginning on October 18th, 1982 in the Juvenile Division. And whereas Tom was transferred to the Criminal Division where he would work closely with law enforcement agencies and had a highly successful record of bringing offenders to justice and keeping Lorain County safe for its residents and families. And whereas Tom then transferred to the Civil Division in 1990 where he assisted nearly all the county departments, agencies, and officials and has provided special legal guidance to Lorain County MRDD, Lorain County Mental Health, and the townships of Lorain County. And whereas Mr. Mangan's dedication, hard work, and team player approach has been an inspiration to everyone who has known him, and he is living proof that sometimes nice guys finish first. And whereas Tom is a caring, dependable worker who always goes the extra mile, and all his untiring efforts, dedication, and humanitarian kindness will be remembered by his fellow workers. Now therefore it be resolved by the Board of Commissioners of Lorain County that we hereby express appreciation for the faithful, conscientious, and rewarding service given by Tom Mangan to the County of Lorain and its citizens. We wish Tom, a former world traveler, to spend more time watching the Indians, eating at Burger King, and enjoying summer vacations in North Carolina along with his wife Nina and their children, Courtney, Thomas, and Martin, and their 2 grandchildren. The best of happiness, peace, and good health to be enjoyed throughout his retirement. Congratulations, Tom. If you'd like to say something, we'd be happy to hear it.
Just real briefly, I really appreciate this. I'm very thankful. That's very nice. For the past quarter century, I've been very honored and very proud to be able to serve Lorain County as a member of the Lorain County Prosecutor's Office, a great office. I started under Greg White. I'm leaving under Dennis Will, 2 fine men. As an assistant county prosecutor, I've been able to work with, for, and provide services to a lot of great people. It's been a great 25 years. I thank you again, Commissioner Blair, Commissioner Kalo, Commissioner Kokoski, and I guess more especially I thank all the people of Lorain County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Flanagan, you'd like to say a few words? Keep it G-rated, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Kalo. Robert Flanagan, Assistant County Prosecutor, Lorain County Prosecutor's Office. I've worked with Tom for 20 years. 19 of those years, our offices have been across the hall from one another or next door to one another. I would just like to publicly thank Tom, and I'm privileged and honored to have worked with such a fine man for these 19 years side by side. If you try to think about one word to describe Tom, it's very hard, but the best word that maybe comes close is either a very honorable man or a hero. Thank you, Tom. It's been a pleasure.
Nice job. Madam Clerk?
Under Recorder, authorize Lorain County Auditor to continue special fund per Ohio Revised Code Section 31709 and 317.321 for increase in fees imposed by Lorain County Recorder for the purpose of supplementing equipment needs of the County Recorder on an annual basis effective January 1st, 2008, expiring December 31st, 2008. It should be 2009. The $4 collected by the county recorder, $2 will be placed in 218 Recorder's Equipment Fund, $2 will be retained in the general fund for employee salary.
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion. Mr. Kayla.
Is
Aye.
Judy
Oh.
here?
Mrs. Blair.
No, I didn't see her.
This is the same resolution we passed last year. I didn't think it was anything hugely significant, so there's no change.
Oh, I thought maybe she'd like to talk to us if she was here.
She's busy working.
Okay.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'd like to invite everybody to come to the fifth floor today at 2 o'clock. We have a big announcement on a new exciting opportunity within Lorain County. We will be doing a web broadcast out to the Entrepreneurial Center at the college, where they'll be also hosting a part of the press conference out there. If you remember from your tour out there, they have that huge screen in the lobby there made up of several monitors, and it gives a great picture. You will be live from here onto that screen, working with making the announcement. It's going to be very, very exciting news, and it will demonstrate the continued expansion of the Lorain County Growth Partnership, the collaboration with the college, Team Lorain County, Team NEO, on improving our community. I don't want to say too much more about that, other we wouldn't need a press release. So anybody that wants to come to the fifth floor today at 2 o'clock is certainly welcome to do so. We will be demonstrating the recruiting and testing procedures that are going on upstairs with our current company that we're hosting, and also all the training that's going on with that company out at EII. And of course, Commissioners, I'm expecting all three of you at 2 o'clock. You do have a role to play, and I will be briefing you more on that later on. I know you got a busy schedule this morning. That will conclude my comment, and I don't need to update my request on the executive session. Those are the issues I wish to discuss. Thank you.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County Prosecutor.
Well, I just wanted to add my congratulations to Tom Mangan, and I'm going to probably repeat something that I've said a couple of times before other organizations. Tom, while working in the juvenile and the criminal and civil division, has been incredibly successful, and he's a very humble person, and he doesn't boast about it. And there probably aren't official records, but it is my belief that with his combined service here, he has won more cases as prosecuting attorney than any other person in the history of our office. And it's an incredible achievement, and in addition to being a fine and honorable person, he's also a winner. So thank you again, Tom.
Commissioners report.
I want to congratulate Tom also. I didn't know him professionally, but kind of related by marriage, long way away, but I've known Tom for a long time, and he is a wonderful, humble man, and congratulations, Tom. I hope you enjoy your retirement. Secondly, I'd like to say go Tribe. It's going to be a late game. Everybody's going to be really tired tomorrow, so hopefully the Tribe will win. I think they will. This week I have been continuing to work with the dog kennel issues, dropped off the policy and procedure manual to Dr. Wood yesterday so he can look through there and see what our policies are now and anything that we might be able to improve upon at the kennel. He's got some good plans. I look forward to working with him. And that's all I have. I'm looking forward to 2 o'clock.
Commissioner Blair?
Oh, thank you. I don't have anything significant to report other than to say that Medina County Commissioner Steve Hambley called me earlier this week, and I invited him to come to our board meeting to talk about membership in NOACA. And I told Steve we'd probably be done with our regular business about 10:30, so that's about the time he'll probably arrive.
So everybody will be gone by then, because it's only 3 minutes after 10 now, Commissioner.
Well, I didn't know you were going to be so efficient.
You don't have any comments on NOACA last week?
Oh, I have lots of them.
Well,
Haven't
go
they
ahead.
already appeared in the newspaper?
Well, I just thought you'd like to, restate them. People can see the anger in your face as
I'm
you say
trying.
the words versus being in print.
I'm trying to get over it. But I will, since you encouraged me.
I will encourage you.
Okay. I said, and it's already been printed, I said that Avon needed, wanted, and deserved the interchange. But some of the words that came to my mind after that were, from that day, intimidation, domination, then the word prevail, which was used by Mayor Sutherland. And then during the week, hostage, extortion, and blackmail. And finally, to Mayor Sutherland's dreaming about this, I said it was a nightmare. Those are the words I used.
Okay. They come across better when you're looking at her saying those. So I have the pleasure of sitting next to Commissioner Blair during NOACA.
Good thing the television was to our back.
Yeah, NOACA was quite exciting last week. We did get the interchange, so I guess Lorain County prevailed, but not the way we wanted to.
I wouldn't even use that word.
I actually got the opportunity, Commissioner DeMora called me from Cuyahoga County yesterday, but his phone kept breaking up, so I didn't get enough in what I had to say. But I'm sure Commissioner Hambley from Medina County will fill us in on what their position is. Also this week, got to meet with a couple of people who are working on the alternative energy in the state of Ohio. A gentleman from WireNet and also a gentleman from the Cleveland Foundation, Mike Challenger from Lorain Growth Corporation, along with Bill Ulick, our Community Development Director. We got together after they had a meeting with a local company, and they were giving the breakdown on where wind energy is going nationally and how far behind the state of Ohio is, where we can't get a renewable portfolio legislation to bring manufacturers into our state. All their projections show, next to the state of California, Ohio would be the second benefiting nation in the country, saying that alternative wind energy is going to grow tenfold in the next 10 years, and it could create up to 23,000 jobs in the state of Ohio if our state legislature can get off their behinds and pass some portfolio legislation to draw people. I don't know, Bill, you have any comments? You spent more of a day with those guys catching you off guard here, but got to bring you up. You can't talk from there, Bill.
Thank you, Commissioner. The only thing I would add is that there is some activity already going on in Lorain County in manufacturing related to windmill technology, and our understanding of the day from what our two experts, as I understand it, was that the infrastructure is in place as far as related companies that manufacture equipment and parts and components for that. And as Commissioner Kalo said, the real piece to this puzzle that still remains to be completed is the legislation. There is some opposition from the utilities simply because they're not familiar with it and they don't like to be told what to do. But that's basically, there's a lot of potential there for manufacturing in Lorain County and in the state of Ohio if this legislation can be spurred on.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, it was quite an interesting meeting. Can't wait till they come back, and they said that Governor Strickland will be up here in the next few weeks to tour a company on the western edge of Cuyahoga County who's big into wind turbine products. So, also, Commissioner Kukowski and myself met with members of the Deputies Union this week to talk about the sales tax, and I talked to Captain Drozdowski this morning. Captain, did they endorse the sales tax last night at their union meeting? Did you hear anything back?
Yes, they did.
Okay, the deputies, after probably an hour and a half of discussion about county finances and such and where we were going and where any overflow of dollars would end up at, basically in the jail and corrections end, that we're working on trying to get a variance to build something to house more prisoners. They've endorsed the sales tax, and they said they're going to move forward on promoting it for us. It was a very good meeting. It was nice to talk to the guys. It was just very interesting. Hadn't had a chance to sit down and speak with them that much time. Also, what else do we have on here? I have all kinds of things. Just Go Tribe, and then Commissioner Blair, you have a few things to say yet. You weren't done, see?
Well, you shouldn't have asked me about Avon. I was all right till you asked me about that. I wanted to remind anybody who might not know about it that Friday, October 26th, is the Lorain County Community Alliance 8th Annual Summit being held right here in our County Administration Building. And our featured speaker is Lieutenant Governor Lee Fisher, who's also the head of the Ohio Department of Development. And we are going to have an update on the West Shore Commuter Rail Project by Ken Prendergast, who is the Director of Research and Communications for All Aboard Ohio. And we've invited Betty Sutton. I think she might come, but we have not got a commitment yet. She, of course, is the congresswoman who got the $350,000 earmark for this project. And finally, Ted is going to let us know about the Lorain County Growth Partnership. So it's going to be a nice day. Lori's going to introduce Betty if she comes. If she doesn't come, we'll actually introduce somebody else. Contact Joyce Parks for reservations. There's some forms back in the back of the room if you want to pick them up and take them with you and have them available. It's going to be a nice day.
Also on the 24th, there's a diversity expo for economic development out at the Spitzer Center at the college. That's
Yeah.
going on from 8:30 to 4:30, I believe, also.
I think both congresswomen are participating in that.
Correct. Madam Clerk?
Just congratulate Tom and tell him thank you for what all he's done with me. Also, I attended the record seminar, your training on Monday, so I will be handing you out your booklets.
We're trained now?
You are trained, you're certified by me, yes.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Teresa.
And also the Karma will be hosted here tomorrow at the Record Center, so I will be in attendance with that. So, board correspondence?
We'll move the reading be waived.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Public comment?
Anyone wishing to speak before the board?
Good morning, Commissioners. David Ashenhurst, Oberlin. I thought I was going to get to talk about the Community Alliance because the microphone had already gone from Commissioner Blair, but she caught that, and so one of my three things is taken care of. The second was just to inquire as to the timing on the study of the economic consequences of unfunded mandates, or whatever this study that was that I thought was going to be in the last week or so coming out from the Public Services Institute, partly so we have some more information as the sales tax measure is being discussed.
We'll have a public presentation next week.
Thank you. And finally, just to support the exploration of alternative energy technologies in Lorain County, as you may know, we have a wind experiment going down in Oberlin. We also buy some of our electric power, our public power, from the wind turbines at Bowling Green. And just to add one little thing to where Ohio is on turbine parts manufacturing, actually we do have a very large parts manufacturing facility in Ohio, and 100% of its output goes to Germany. That is not because we couldn't use it here, but because we lack the incentives to our utilities to make it possible. So I'm certainly hopeful that we both get more wind and solar technology, and hydro actually, in the state of Ohio, but that we find a way to make this manufacturing capability support and use those dollars more than once here in Lorain County in the state of Ohio. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Anyone else wishing to speak before the board? Oh, Ron Nabokowski, any comments? They said you're here, so I didn't know if you wanted to talk today.
We'll have a couple things on the agenda next week from the departments to speak about budgetary needs.
Oh,
And
okay.
I think I had a little cross issue there, so if you would be patient till next week, Ron, I would appreciate it. We have a few requests, and I just figured we'd do them all at the same time.
I entertain a motion moving to executive session as outlined by the administrator and prosecutor.
I'll second with the caveat that when Mr. Hamley gets here, we'll break.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Call the meeting back to order. We have with us today Commissioner Steve Hamley from Medina County, one of our partners in NOACA, who has some concerns he'd like to discuss publicly with the Lorain County Board of Commissioners.
And former board president for NOACA.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Greetings from Medina County, my fellow commissioners. I do thank you for the opportunity after talking with Betty. Thought it may be a good idea to at least start a dialogue here with you all. As you may or may not be aware, Medina County Commissioners on Monday decided that we would be looking at our relationship with NOACA after having some considerable concern over the, well, we'll just say the weighted vote and the forced forced sharing of taxes regarding the Avon project that occurred on Friday. We had a number of concerns, not only in the outcome, but the process that was followed. As Commissioner Blair is well aware, and as well as you Mr. Commissioner Callow, is we essentially had two committees in NOACA reviewing this. One was the TAC, Transportation Advisory Committee, that largely dealt with the traffic issues. This project went through that process, and it was not a weighted vote. It certainly it was somewhat split, but there was a solid majority in favor of moving forward. And a parallel track, and it was new to NOACA to do this, was the board empowered the executive committee to essentially hire an independent consultant to do an impact analysis on this project. I think the intent of the board was to make sure that the committee that was overseeing this was a balanced interest, balanced regionally, and our executive committee is just that. It has a balance. It has a representation from Cleveland and Cuyahoga, but likewise your representatives, and I'm on that, as well as Geauga and Lake. So at least there was some balanced oversight. Unfortunately for our colleagues in Cuyahoga County and Cleveland, they did not see fit to endorse, and they significantly challenged the result of that study. I think most of us that reviewed it, and those that even had some academic review of it, felt that it was a good analysis of the economy, what was going on, and what actually was going to happen. Following that, there was a resolution produced, and as you're aware, and sent to the NOACA Governing Board in September, endorsing the project with just a little provision that possibility of tax-based sharing might be considered with Avon and Cuyahoga County in the future. What happened after that was basically a separate process, and then unfortunately I'd have to characterize as more the backroom politics. Mayor Frank Jackson of Cleveland is very fond of saying, he said at our regional summit, they can't keep doing business as usual. Unfortunately, in this case, I think they did business as usual. It didn't involve any of the parties that had been involved in that room. They had decided that the premise of this was going to be a forced, as you know, sharing of taxes of Avon. So Medina County has some concerns as a consequence of that flawed process. They dumped the resolution on our table that day, as you know, within minutes of expecting us to vote on it. The executive committee was not given the opportunity to review it, even before, when we really had time beforehand, and that didn't happen. And I know that the president of our board, I'll just have to say, aided and abetted somewhat this process, because he participated, as I understand, from some of those that did from the western suburbs, that he was involved all the way up until Thursday afternoon in the details of that. Friday morning, we could have literally sat down and gone through some of this information. But so it created a whole separate process of review and set some conditions that for future that are troubling. There is no consensus for, certainly not in my county, and I'm not sure about yours, that road projects have to be necessarily tied to tax-based sharing agreements. And I think that needs continual, some significant study, more study than what was done, and a better understanding and then between parties as to the nature of our economy, and frankly, their approach was, certainly heavy-handed at the very least. Medina County has taken the position that since we know we have impending major projects in the future, we don't want to be in the same boat as you all were. We don't want to be held hostage for our road projects, for sharing of taxes. And likewise, I think we have another concern that another goal of looking at our various options now is more productive regionalism, much more efficient regionalism. Hence, we have a couple things that I guess open the dialogue. I know we have some mutual concerns, and the dialogue maybe discussing a changes or reform of NOACA. I even had, I know I received some communication after Friday's vote from mayors in Cuyahoga County that actually were ready to. They told me they were ready to vote for that original resolution. And of course, once it was forced upon, and then they went along with everybody else. But they would have voted in favor of that interchange anyway, without that tax-based sharing. And they are as equally interested, though, in reforming NOACA and seeing elimination of that weighted vote. I think likewise, what we should be talking about rather than this going back and forth is actually becoming much more efficient. We have an opportunity as a board, and we don't realize it in NOACA, to, as our staff are retiring, rather than filling those positions, we ought to be looking at merging our staff with other MPOs. We ought to be looking at sharing resources. And maybe this is more of a visionary, but there's no reason we shouldn't really be doing that combined planning and using combined resources, planning resources for some of these important initiatives with AMATs, and then of course Erie on your side. So I think those are things that we ought to be looking at, try and become much more efficient and much more, if you will, business-like in the approach. And likewise, in terms of business-like, maybe focus more on transportation planning, what we do, some of the environmental planning, and not try to get into this more state-controlled, where deciding where investments are going to occur in our region, where they aren't. And as we know, that this was largely a private sector driven, and with the local public sector, and it didn't involve any NOACA dollars, didn't involve the state dollars or Fed, and that's probably as equally troubling. The other options we're looking at is removing Medina from the NOACA region. And as I understand that, at least from the newspaper reports, that you all had considered that during this whole, I won't say debacle, but I'll say very difficult and challenging issue. But I think we would like to share information with you, see if you are still interested. I know that that's one of the options you had looked at forming your own. We would likewise be looking at redesignation of a planning organization to be affiliated with. We're not large enough to be on our own, and I think that makes little sense in economies of scale. I think likewise we would have to look at this point, to our eastern border is AMATS, which is basically Summit County and Portage, which is, some people may not realize, in the 70s they were part of NOACA. Maybe they got wise and got out soon, but at this point we have that opportunity. We have actually very good relationships on a regional basis with Summit County. Our workforce development is tied to them. We're members of Neotech, obviously Team Neo. There's a lot of initiatives that we work on a continual basis with them. So, but we also, and it was part of the discussion, Mike Saleh, our county engineer, was part of this on Monday, suggested that we talk and approach Lorain County, and likewise see if you have an interest, or if you've considered much beyond the preliminary stuff we saw in the newspaper of either creating an MPO and redesignating our affiliation. So that's, I guess, somewhat my reason for being here, is opening the discussion. It's unfortunate that we've been, I guess, forced into this situation, and I think when we look to reform NOACA, they have the leadership level has to take this very seriously. And now let me, I guess, kind of end with a little. There's a parable, if you will, from India, the Asian continent. State or the country, and back in the 16th century they had transcribed a parable that it's been changed, but I think it's somewhat fitting here. It talks about the parable, or the story about the scorpion and the turtle, and the turtle that was swimming back and forth within a river that was overflown, and a scorpion wanted to cross it. So he talked to the turtle and said, "I would like to get across this. Can you help me?" And the turtle said, "Well, geez, if I help you, you're going to sting me, and then I'll die." And the scorpion says, "Well, if I do that while I'm on your back and you're swimming across, we'll both die. What sense does that make?" So the turtle thought, okay, well, and then the story goes that the scorpion got on the turtle, and about midstream he feels a sting in his neck, and the scorpion stung him. And the turtle, as he's struggling and he's starting to sink, says, "Why did you do this? What's the logic of this?" And the scorpion said, "It's not about logic, it's just my nature." And unfortunately, I feel in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland, the use of this authority is their nature. They have it, and so maybe that's where we need to. I think our best idea for regionalism is to strive not to go towards our nature. Our nature will be to, in my community, to rebel and just have nothing to do with regionalism. And I think we need to try to keep away from our worst nature. We ought to be trying to work together, continue to work together like we've done in the past. But we also need to, I think, I hate to say discipline, but we need to deal with some self-discipline within the NOACA region. And we certainly need to deal with the issue of Cuyahoga County and Cleveland, if you will, dictating the terms of many of the projects that we've got that will be coming up here in the next number of years. So with that, I just, like I said, wanted to open up, and maybe if anything, I hope we can get some agreement to some point people, the point persons, that we can start transferring the information back and forth and share. We're going to have a separate legal review of what our options are ourselves, and certainly we'd be glad to share that with you whenever that's done, so that you're well aware. But our intent is very clear. We're not going to be held to extortion. Unfortunately, Lorain was, and I just came from an Economic Development Corporation meeting where obviously the business leadership is very much concerned about the same time, and they are solidly behind us in making a dramatic move. So I've assured them that we commissioners and our communities that are involved in this are going to take a very, very close look at this, weigh all the options, and try to do what's best in the long run for Medina County and our residents, to protect them from any similar type of extortion.
Very eloquently spoken, Steve. It was very nice.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead. I'll let you start, Commissioner Blair. Go ahead.
Very nice summation, without any fluff or anything. You just called it the way it was. It was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe we've already started. Commissioner Blair asked our county prosecutor, Jerry Innes, to already look into us what it takes to vacate. If you can fill us in, Jerry.
Yeah, we have started to look into this. If you've ever dealt with the IRS code, I was mentioning, it's like doing your income taxes. You know how you'll read a section and it will refer you to another section, and then that section has 10 more sections. So every time I refer to something, I get a bigger book that I'm looking at. It appears to be a basic concept of whether it's a redesignating to another MPO or forming your other, of working together and coming up with they refer to it as an agreement with the governor, but I think it's since the money comes from the federal government and the state government, it's a matter of doing all the paperwork, putting together the plans that they require, and then submitting it to the governor's office for its approval. There aren't any specific deadlines or time periods that are set forth. It's basically a procedure of making sure that the programs and the funding processes that you have in motion can be moved over to a new organization. That new organization has the staff and so forth that is going to be necessary to handle those programs. Steve, our office has worked with the Medina County Prosecutor's Office on a number of joint efforts, so I would be happy to work together with
good.
Your office. Ron Twining and his people have already supplied me with a great quantity of information. It's like anything to do with the federal government, going to be a little bit of a slow and mountains of paperwork type process.
Quite cumbersome, huh?
It isn't easy, and obviously, while moving to and joining a new existing MPO is certainly going to be much easier than creating your own, because they have all that in place, the staff and the procedures and all those things. So it is not an overnight matter, but there is no set thing that you have to wait so long or whatever to get it done.
So I guess given that, it might be possible as we explore or to start discussing with AMATs and getting more information, obviously we can convey that to you. If we would end up going that route, obviously they would also be, you would be contiguous because of our northwest border and your southeast border, that AMATs would be a possibility then. As a redesignation, and that seems to be the easier way to do it.
That's probably the easier.
Yeah.
Obviously, whatever changes you want to make, I think you want to look at what your alternatives are,
right.
Including the I don't think any of the possibilities. I mean, if making changes within the WACA turns out to be the best alternative, that's probably something you should look at too. But
Well, I think that's clear amongst some of the members of Cuyahoga, an interest in doing that.
How would we go about suggesting a change to the weighted voting?
I understand our Code of Regulations, which we updated in 2002, just in January 2002, it requires essential, all parts of it can be modified by the board except for the Section 4, which deals with the weighted voting and the officers, who can be an officer, whether an elected official has to be an officer. Right now, it's just anybody on the board can be an officer. Though that section requires all the county commission, all the boards of county commissioners, a majority of each board, but it has to have all 5 boards. So you wouldn't have to have the city of Cleveland, according to at least of our Code of Regulations, have them sign off on it, but it would require a majority of Cuyahoga County, at least 2 commissioners from every county, agreeing to it.
But when all the counties got together, then all 5 would have to be in agreement. That's not a
That's
majority,
right.
It's unanimous.
That's right, that's correct. Yeah, the way it's written, it's worded kind of funny. I think Steve DeJohn, when he did that, kind of did that intentionally. But if you look at it, it specifically says a majority of each board in the region. So what it means is basically each board, you have to at least have 2 commissioners, obviously, to make a majority for those 5 counties. So it would require Cuyahoga County signing off. There's no doubt.
Well, maybe Cuyahoga County ought to be asked if they're interested.
Well, I think that discussion happened yesterday when I spoke to Commissioner DeMore is approaching that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of us are unhappy with the staff at NOACA. They do a very good job. It's just some of the rules and regs. I have a big problem with appointed people voting for elected officials when they're not elected, and the way the current board is made up, Mayor Jackson's appointees, they're going to follow Mayor Jackson's mandate. They're not going to make up their own minds. So you might as well give Mayor Jackson all 7 of those City of Cleveland votes himself, which is extremely weighted. So, I mean, I just don't agree with the process currently, and it's my first time being new. I've only been on NOACA approximately 3 years. Commissioner Blair and yourself, Commissioner Hambley, have spent a lot of time working throughout that organization. But unless we can address that situation of the weighted vote and who can call it, I think it's time to exit.
I think
and if
need
we
to
can't
get
address
rid of
that,
it. Excuse me, not who can call it. We don't have it anymore.
Well, I still think maybe the 5 boards of commissioners should be available to call that, possibly when it comes down to the county being run. Again, something got to be worked out in the regulations.
No, each county should take care of their own business, and should, in my opinion, should not be sticking their nose into the other county's business. From my perspective, Cleveland/Cuyahoga County, when they have their issues, they need to work them out and then move them up the ladder. It's not my place to tell them how to do business. Do you agree with me, Steve, or not?
Well, I would. Most of my constituents certainly agree with you, and I tend to agree with you as well. I think what Ted's kind of been indicating already is the sense of negotiation we would have to go through if our main purpose is to stay within NOACA. Like I said, but as far as Medina County is concerned, that's just one option. And they had to understand very clearly that, to us, elimination of that weighted, and I agree with you, I think elimination of that weighted vote is about the only option we have in terms of reforming NOACA. I can't see a basis. They'd have to make a very strong argument as to why they can retain that, because they will just, as their nature will be, they'll use it when, Unfortunately, I came on the NOACA board when that was threatened in '97, and then it was threatened again. And
that's right after they threatened it in '96.
Yes. So they've used it often, but this is only the second time that they've actually used it. So
well, I think that's where we have to reappoint the board and not have employees serving. It just gives the mayors and the commissioners of the largest area so many appointees, plus they get the weighted vote.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't add up for us. I just don't see where appointed officials, like Ron Twining represents us on TAC. That's wonderful through the process, but when it comes down to the vote, I think it's the people who are elected by the people to represent them should be making the decisions. And I think it has to be more equitably split up. I'm very uncomfortable with it currently.
I would agree with you. Yeah. And actually, if you look at the composition, the executive committee is supposed to be pretty much that, but we don't. All we get basically in terms of Cuyahoga County are the alternates, and the people who were actually making this decision in the back rooms never set foot in the public meetings when they heard these reports. The report by the consultant. So they really didn't see it. I mean, Mayor Frank Jackson wasn't there. None of the 3 commissioners had ever, were there whenever all of us were working with that consultant. So to me, it's like, if you really want to be part of this, I mean, they could spare at least one commissioner every now and then to maybe come to our meetings, other than for photo ops. No, just, sorry.
You know, getting your hands dirty, huh?
I know. Well, you know, if you come in late and leave early, it doesn't seem that it's as important enough. And for all of us that are putting the time in, you know, as I think was pointed out by the mayor of Avon Lake, all of our votes are important. Someone was saying that we only use, our president said that only we use the way to vote for the important ones, and for us that are spending a lot of time and effort there, believe in Betty and others such as yourself and the committees, every one of these things is important, and that the people expect that, and they need to take this seriously.
What's the consensus of the Cuyahoga County Commissioners as far as the way to vote? Would they give it up to keep us in?
I don't know. We started dialogue yesterday with Commissioner Moore's cut out. So we didn't get to finish our
Probably
conversation.
intentionally.
Steve?
Yes.
I think Steve has a third conversation you had, repeated third hand.
Well, that they're willing, actually today that apparently is going to be part of their discussion, or at least going to be presented to the commissioners to consider. And this is just through the alternate for Commissioner Peter Lawson-Jones, who is the one that sits on the executive committee, and we've been most involved with Hugh Shannon. So they're, at this point, I guess they are considering it, and which means they've understood the message that we're very much concerned about the use of that. And he asked if that would go any distance to help with this issue, and I told him it would go a very long way. But we will, I guess, we'll wait and see what the response is. But there's no doubt that we have to have some continued dialogue. We're still going to be part of that, the MPO and the process. We've got projects in the pipeline. Lorain does, Medina does, and we have to safeguard that process until we can determine what our options are, and then, of course, exercise our judgment as to, and involve our communities, obviously, and the people, as to what the best way to approach long-term our regional planning responsibilities.
Have you had any conversation with Lake and Geauga County since last Friday? We've been sort of like licking our wounds here in Lorain County.
No, most of the calls I've been getting, no, I haven't heard from Mary Samedi, although she apparently had some conversations with one of the mayors in Cuyahoga about that. And all I heard is secondhand, she understands Cuyahoga's view, but that, I mean, so you can understand it but may not agree with it. But I, frankly, at this point, I haven't had any conversations that way. We're not contiguous to them, so and I said, but my actions have been primarily devoted to quickly exploring our options. Like I said, we don't want to get in a position where we've got something coming through that they can basically do the same thing, and it's going to take some time. So we want to make sure that we address that, and so my efforts have been largely geared that way. And kind of going back a little bit, your comments about the staff, I absolutely agree with you. This is not a reflection on the staff, the quality. I have the highest regard for them. Heck, if we become our own MPO, we ought to maybe think about, you know, contract out with them. Let them do some of the work for us. That's really what we ought to be talking about, outsourcing. If anybody, Thomas Friedman's is the world is flat. Our region is flattening. And we ought to be looking and doing the same thing. I mean, this is all the comments when I've started rereading the book in a regional context and saying, well, you know, some of this stuff really applies what's going on regional. So when you hear Thomas Friedman talk about a flattening world, actually we have a flattening region too, and we have capital moves, people move, we have the communications. I mean, you just go down the list, the insourcing, the outsourcing, all that is occurring regionally, and government ought to be taking a look at that and operating on that model. And maybe that's what ultimately we might be able to do is okay, what's the best way to get this service done isn't necessarily always hiring from the inside. It's just joining forces and saying, okay, you know, we've got this need, this planning need, these services we require, and contract for them. So to me, I think we ought to be a little bit more creative and maybe a little bit more stingy with the public dollars.
Jerry?
Well, I mean, it sounds like we both agree that the staff of NOACA would be something that we all like, and we would not want to just lose that easily. I get the impression that if just one of us left, we would not have that big of an impact upon NOACA. But you know, we start getting 2 or 3 of the counties leaving, and then we could have an impact. So, you know, if we want to retain the staff of NOACA, then I think our step would probably be to say to them, look, either you're going to do something about this weighted vote provision, or both counties are going to be looking to go elsewhere. So, I mean, Steve, maybe you need to discuss it with your board and see if that's their impression. I get the impression that that's how this board feels, that we at the very least need to change or eliminate this weighted vote provision. And then we need to convey that to the power brokers in Cuyahoga County and say, you know, we'd like to stay there because of your staff, but if you're not going to change this weighted vote thing, then we are indeed going to look elsewhere.
I agree with you where it comes to if just one leaves, it's, you know, David versus Goliath. If a couple of us leave or three, I mean, you're taking out 40% of the body of a 5-county area. If two leave, if three were to leave, you've decimated the organization, and Cuyahoga ends up all by themselves, and we control all the inroads of Cuyahoga County with our MPO. So the improvements can be done to benefit us, not them.
If just, yeah, we leave, it still actually puts Lorain County at a worse position, because now you have even a more, rather than 63%, I haven't calculated, it'll probably be like close to 70% weighted vote against you, so, sorry. But you're right, the more they leave, I guess they'll get the message that this is serious. They can have the weighted vote of one county, and as I think your mayor from Avon Lake said, they'll become a planning agency for one county.
Well, it'd be the MPO of just the city of Cleveland. Everybody else would have to look at what they decided.
I guess.
And if you do have somebody, either in the prosecutor's office
Okay.
or in the commissioner's office, maybe if you could let our board know. And
Okay.
we'll contact them and kind of coordinate efforts and information.
That'd be great. All
Do
right,
we
thank
want
you.
to do anything today other than just discuss this?
Well, I don't know. I don't think you need to pass a formal resolution. I think we pretty well expressed that intent to the Medina Board of Commissioners, that we intend to pursue
All avenues.
A change in the weighted vote provision. While we're doing that, we're going to be exploring our alternatives, and if there is no indication from Cuyahoga County that they are willing to change that weighted vote, then we will move forward.
I just want to be real specific. I don't want a change in it. I want an elimination of it. Okay? It's
The
just-
art
it's
of
got-
negotiation, Commissioner.
Yes, I realize that.
I'm being real specific.
No, that's
I know you are, Commissioner.
No, it's just, you know, if they come back and say...
Unless they want to give us the weighted vote. We could change it
If
in
they
our
just come back
direction.
and say, get lost,
There we go.
then we just pursue our other alternatives.
That's fine. But if they want to talk about it and want us to be involved, they need to look at the fact that we're asking for them to eliminate that weighted voting. Is that what Medina County's asking
Oh,
for?
that definitely, I mean, there's a number of reforms that we ought to be approaching. I mean, Commissioner Kayla's, and I know that you, I think, share the concern with the appointed officials having the same vote as elected officials, and actually the non-activity of elected officials. They're supposed to be members. So I think those are issues that we
That's a major
need to be
issue.
discussed.
They don't report to the public like we do as elected officials.
I agree.
They're not
Mayor
accountable.
Jackson has all those appointments to the city of Cleveland, 3 or 4 directly from his staff, and they're going to vote his way, and Mayor Jackson's one vote becomes 4 or 5 votes, and he just has to be accountable, but he's weighting himself with his employees. I'd love to stack the board with our employees. It's an easy way to do it. Let's all make our employees part of our committees, and we'll never lose a vote, because if you don't vote our way, we're going to fire you. I mean, that's a simple process. It just doesn't work in government when we're trying to make decisions for the public. I'm not comfortable with it, didn't like it going into it, never cared for it. And I think they just brought it forward now that we have to discuss these reforms or discuss an exit strategy.
When was the last time that we updated that code of regulations?
2000, we worked on it when I was president, 2001, and we finally adopted it in January 2002.
So that's
But
5
we-
years ago.
Yeah. So,
It
it's
clearly
time.
could be looked at.
But the weighted vote, I think, has been around since like '92, if I recall correctly.
I think it was before that.
Was it really?
I really do. I think it was.
Well, I know they
initially-
reorganized.
Because the information that Teresa had that I looked at, when Jerry Kern was the commissioner, there was a reference to the weighted voting and
okay.
way back then. So
Wow.
I think that was in there from the beginning. Probably
Well,
that's the only way they
Well,
joined.
Mayor Jackson has
forces.
said we can't keep doing business the way we've always done it if we really want to push, advance regionally, and so
But
I
does he
totally agree.
believe
This is the
what-
way
Hold
that's
him
been
to it.
done.
Does he believe what he's saying?
I'm going to take him at his word until, at this point. So I think we're going to give them the opportunity
Oh,
to change.
You are a true politician.
You only meant that in the most flattering way, I'm sure.
I did. I absolutely did, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
coming. We really appreciate your input.
Well, we've got any public comment before we adjourn into executive session?
David just
No,
can't
we're
contain
going-
himself.
We got IAC, so
Oh, we got IAC, okay. And we're not going into executive. You get 2 minutes, David, because we've got to get into IAC.
I'll take
meeting.
less than 2 minutes. I too have a story, and actually, I said it when I first got here more than 12 years ago. My look at regionalism here when I got here was like Bette Midler's line in Beaches. She says, as Cleveland sometimes does, well, enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me? And that's the way I found a number of things working regionally out here. But 2 very quick things. We cannot exit the region. We can exit the regional organization here, but we cannot exit the region. Please work on reforming the regional organization before thinking about exiting it. To me, that would be a distressing direction if it had to be. And second, please, when you think about NOACA's scope of activity, remember that even if public dollars weren't being used in this particular interchange, their mission is to plan for public infrastructure improvements, and putting an exit onto an interstate highway is still a public improvement, even if it's not being done with public dollars in the same way that some other NOACA projects are. So please don't say NOACA can only be involved if U.S. Department of Transportation and Ohio Department of Transportation money is involved. I think they really do have a duty, a right, an obligation, something to talk about the effect on regional public infrastructure, even if it's not being used with the same kind of public dollars that they're assigning in other responsibilities.
Not to interrupt you, we went through that process. That's the standard NOACA process of the Transportation Advisory Committee, which I serve on.
I understand.
We did that. The economic impact analysis was something they decided they wanted and didn't live with the results.
I understand.
The results,
and that, to me, that is ridiculous. You get a study, it's kind of like submitting a binding arbitration and then saying, well, we don't want to be bound by that, so we'll do something else. I definitely agree that that kind of reform is necessary, but please do as much as you can to reform it before you exit it. It's just
well, I think that's what we're doing, David. That's all the discussion is where we can reform it to make it fairer for the communities, but also if they decide not to, we need an exit strategy to continue to meet our transportation needs in the region. If the region happens to be Lorain County, Medina, Erie, Summit, Portage, without Cuyahoga.
Well, but in in Team NEO, in the growth partnership, and everything else we're doing, we consider Cuyahoga County part of our region, and we consider ourselves part of Northeast Ohio. Whatever we call our region without Cuyahoga County, or is just, it really moves in a different direction, and we've talked about these sorts of things before. It'd be almost as if our own community alliance, when our own community alliance kind of didn't include Lorain. It's a much better county community alliance when it includes all the communities.
You're right, but it still functioned.
I understand.
But also,
that's the point.
I understand.
David,
Thank you.
We consider regionalism, and we've all talked about it, and it's fine if Cuyahoga is an equal player with us when they become our parents, or, that's the problem. You don't tell us what to do. We're elected by our constituents to represent our area,
Commissioner.
and when they step up to the plate to stop something that we feel is best, and it's passed snuff. I mean, it's been through all the tests. It was approved by TAC, sent forward. It passed the air quality test. It passed the federal test. I mean, it went through all the standard procedures that have been in operation for 15 to 17, whatever NOAC has been done since the reorganization. And because they didn't like the answer to the question they asked, they decided to shut it down and use a weighted vote and did some of the things that Betty stated.
I understand completely. They should not be allowed to veto things, and that's what happened here. And so whatever the system is that says anybody has a veto of what the whole process that's been well supported and that everybody's adhered to for 30 years or whatever, suddenly we say, well, we don't like that, so we're going to veto it. We didn't know that anybody had a veto until somebody sort of said, oh, we're vetoing this. I agree, that should not be possible.
It's sort of like the Boston Red Sox are down 3-1, and today they decide they get 4 strikes at every at-bat instead of 3. And that's what they did to us in this process.
What would be really amazing is if they could really get the umpires to agree to that.
Well,
Thank you.
Well, no, when you have a way to vote, the umpires just have to do what they're told.
Yeah. Well, you get the picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else? And we have to adjourn into Investment Advisory Committee meeting and then into executive
You're
session.
recessing into investment.
Well, we're recessed. Okay.
Thanks again, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate
Ladies and
it.
gentlemen, thank you.
Welcome to another broadcast of the Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Thursday mornings at 9:30 at the Lorain County Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and as always, you are invited to attend.
Pedestrian injuries represent the second largest number in motor-related deaths. In the current report by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, of the 812 traffic fatalities for children ages 5 to 9, almost one-third, that's 254, were pedestrian fatalities. These numbers were just very staggering to me in this office. Most of these were from pedestrian crossings. Children not educated in crossing streets where there are sidewalks and obviously stoplights, or where there are no sidewalks and there are stop signs. So basically, it was based on the fact that they aren't getting proper education, or they hadn't any education on how to cross streets with sidewalks or without sidewalks. So that's what really got us motivated to look into this and do something about it.
County Engineer's Office is quite proud to announce that the Safe Routes to School program has been initiated throughout Lorain County. We're very excited about this. To help these children from grades K to 4, teaching them to walk the streets safely is very important to us. We've seen statistics that quite frankly shock us. Many times we read and see stories of pedestrians being hit by automobiles in Lorain County, and it just tears my heart to see these children from K to 4 part of that. This program is to stop that, to help diminish those type of situations, and to educate these children on crossing the street safely. And we're quite happy to announce that.
Most of our workshop was developed and made in-house. Simulated sidewalks, simulated streets. We have actual working stoplights. We have the pedestrian crossing signs that actually work. We have operational railroad crossings. We also have the regular road signs like your pedestrian crossing, your stop sign, your railroad sign. So we have all of these different things that the children can not only visualize, but then we actually interact the children in those situations so they can not only see, but they can use these in their learning abilities on how to cross the streets with and without sidewalks. We've had so many good responses back from the children, and of course it's just like anything else with children. When you ask for volunteers, when you're talking in a group of 60 and you can only have 8, it's amazing at the hands that go up. You know, does anybody want to volunteer? Well, everybody wants to volunteer. We make them go over these skills that we're trying to teach them, not only the volunteers, but the group as a whole. So basically we have the whole class interacting. So if they say left, right, left, behind you, in front of you once, they say it at least 8 or 10 times before the workshop is over. So we've had many teachers and many principals tell us, and we even had one child that came up to us and said, you know what, Miss Spansky, we were going to cross the street the other day and we remembered, look left, look right, look left. So that was very rewarding. And so I think the repetition, the interaction with the children and with the items in our workshop is very important to them and to us. Before you even go into the safety part of it, they're in awe over the traffic light, and then our railroad crossing signals actually work. So they're just like, oh, ooh. And we get up there and we tell them, and we even give them some trick questions. You know, we'll say, well, we can see that train all the way down the track. Do you think we can make it, because you're fast and I'm fast and we can run? And of course they're very enthusiastic and no, we shouldn't do this. So we teach them that in some urban areas you will not have the gates that come down to keep you actually from crossing, that you may just have 2 sets of tracks, and just because one goes by and the signals stop doesn't mean that another one can't come from the other direction. So we tell them it's very, very imperative that they stay back from the tracks and they wait till those signals stop and to look both ways. And even once those signals stop, to look both ways, and they should never run across the railroad tracks. They should walk and continue to look both ways, because it's not safe and they could fall, they could injure themselves. If they're alone, if they're not with someone, it could be very dangerous, because not only could they injure themselves, they may not have help if there is a train coming, because they are so small. And as you know, some of those tracks are very large, and you're talking in kindergarten through 4th grade, some of those children are very small children. The main thing is that we tell them that only you know when it's safe. You have to make that ultimate decision. So make sure that you know that it's safe before you cross those railroad tracks or a street. One of the other things that we cover in the safety workshop, and it's also repeated in our video, children don't have that perception of the miles per hour. It's very dangerous. And the same thing with trains. We tell them that train could take, forever. It's way down there. But we don't know the actual miles per hour. We decided to use 2 different videos. The first one is geared for kindergarten and 1st grade, and that is Otto the Otto, put out by AAA.
Hi, kids. A lot of times you have to walk to get to places. And when you're walking, you have to be especially careful of cars and bicycles. Oh, no! Those kids are walking the wrong way! That's dangerous. I'm going to talk with these kids. Down at the clubhouse, they're talking about the safe way to walk on streets without sidewalks.
I say you can walk across the street anywhere you want, as long as you look first. And don't get squished flat by a car. That's a fairly simple way of looking at safety. There are actual rules and laws for walking. Yeah, but the most important one is you don't get squished flat. Who's right, Maggie? Patrick or us?
I guess in a sense everyone's right. The main idea is to get there safely, but there are some rules to help you get there safely, like don't run out into the street without looking.
The second video, we show 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, and it is put together by the National Safety Council along with Honda, and they developed the first humanoid robot.
This is Michael. Michael, this is Osimo.
How come you dressed in a robot suit? It's not a suit. I'm a real robot. My name, Osimo, stands for Advanced Step in Innovative Mobility. I'm the world's most advanced humanoid robot. I can walk forwards, backwards, and even climb stairs just like a human. So, what's the first rule about crossing the street?
Stopping at curbs.
Correct. First, always stop at the curb. Then make sure no cars are coming. You want to look left.
It's clear.
Then right to see if any cars are coming from the other direction.
That's clear too.
Cars move fast. There might already be a new car to the left. So look left again.
Car coming.
See what I mean?
Okay, he's gone.
Kids love this. They relate to Osimo as well as the younger children relate to Otto, who is an animated automobile. And he tells them about crossing streets. Osimo does the same thing, and he actually goes through with the children and tells them how to cross the street at an intersection with a traffic light, with a pedestrian crossing. He also teaches them how to cross because a lot of children at schools have parked cars. He goes over the issues of how to cross when there are parked cars. So he does a number of different things, how to cross the street when there are no sidewalks. So they both cover the basic skills. One is just geared a little bit more for the different age groups. Our response has been amazing, not only from the children. We have received numerous cards. I have a whole box of thank yous from children from the schools where we have that have participated in our workshop. We've had nothing but a positive response back throughout the communities that we visited this year.
I think it was really nice because they had a real life robot talk to you about safety, and you got to actually do what he said was safe. He said when there are parked cars to make sure there are no drivers in before you cross the street.
I saw that we could know what to do when there's cars coming, not to go in the middle of the road so you don't get hurt. You have to look left, right, left, behind the shoulder, and then straight. If they don't know how to stop at sidewalks, then I'll tell them how to. If they don't know how to cross without sidewalks, then I'll tell them how to do that too, because that's what we learned. I think that it was good because I didn't know that you had to look 5 ways, which were left, right, left, and going over your shoulder, and then ahead of you. I thought that crossing the road was really good for little kids if they don't know what to do by crossing the road.
It's a good idea because, like I said, the kids could walk through the whole process of crossing streets with the crosswalk, without a crosswalk, at the intersection. What happens if you're crossing in between 2 parked cars? Those are things that parents don't teach their kids. They go to Safety Town and they learn left, look right, look left again, and they go. And even my own son, who's a kindergartner, he just did Safety Town, and I still catch him flying across the street. And all I have to do is say, Matthew, remember Osimo? And he stops and he thinks and he does all the steps that he was taught in the video.
It was a great refresher, especially for them, now knowing, what to do and kind of even additional things that they may not have been told or considered before.
Most of the kids did their little safety program back when they were getting ready to go to kindergarten. They start out learning all those safety rules. Then as time goes on, if you don't reinforce those safety rules and keep telling them, just like we do as adults, we think we're safe. We don't have to follow those rules anymore. We can do what we want. We can take a chance and run across the road. And I think this program was very good at reinforcing the fact that even though we're growing up, we still have to be careful. We still have to follow the signs. We still have to follow the railroad crossings, especially around here in Amherst. We tend to have a little trouble with the railroad crossings and kids wanting to play on them. So I think it was a good review. I think it was done in a fun, learning way. and the kids really enjoyed it. We were very happy to have everyone here at St. Joseph's School.
If it saves one life, we feel like we've made a contribution. It's our way to give back to the communities.
In 1787, the Continental Congress organized the lands from the Ohio River to the Mississippi into the Northwest Territories. In 1803, the first of these territories to become a state was Ohio. Ohio was in turn divided into various land grants, including the Connecticut Western Reserve in the northeast corner of the state. The Western Reserve included the area that is today Lorain County. As Ohio gradually increased its counties to the present 88, the land we know as Lorain County went through several changes. Until 1810, the area was split between Geauga and Portage counties. When the area was being organized into Lorain County in 1822, it was created out of land from Huron, Cuyahoga, and Medina counties. At the time of its birth, Lorain County included Olmsted Township, now in Cuyahoga County, Spencer and Homer Townships, now in Medina County, and Troy and Sullivan Townships, now in Ashland County. This map illustrates the county as it appeared at the time of Ohio's centennial, and although some of the townships have been absorbed by incorporation, it also represents the shape of Lorain County today. Let's take a brief historical look at each of Lorain County's 21 townships. In 1807, the Calvin Hoadley and Herman Bronson families of Waterbury, Connecticut, began the settlement of Columbia. After a 3-month trek, the pioneers arrived in their new homeland in time to celebrate Christmas. The Bronsons, including their 7-month-old son, began that winter sheltered by their overturned bobsled wagon converted into a frontier lean-to. The mouth of the Black River also saw the beginning of its first settlement in 1807, when Azariah Beebe established a trading post for Nathan Perry. This area, which 20 years earlier had seen a short-lived Moravian mission, would gradually grow into the village of Charleston in the township called Black River. Years later, this township would be removed from county maps because of the incorporation of the city of Lorain. Charleston adopted the county's name of Lorain when the city was incorporated in 1874. The dramatic growth of the city was spurred on by the expanding fishing and shipbuilding industries. In 1894, when Tom Johnson brought his steel mill to town, Lorain's destiny to be the county's largest city was assured. In 1813, the township of Ridgeville was officially organized. 3 years earlier, members of the Beebe, Terrell, and Root families had established this new settlement they called Rootstown. The change to Ridgeville was decided upon to indicate the sand ridges that passed through the area and provided transportation routes and fertile farmland. The area around the intersection of Butternut Ridge and Roots Road, first called Briggs Corner, was by 1880 known as Fields Corners and was the site of the town's water well. With the growth of the city of North Ridgeville, the township of Ridgeville was incorporated out of existence. In 1810, Silas Wilmot, along with Asa and Ira Morgan, erected a cabin on Butternut Ridge, and the community later called Eaton Township was begun. Wilmot married Chloe Hubbard of Ashtabula, and they were given the cabin, thereby becoming the township's pioneering couple. When Ridgeville Township was organized in 1813, it included Eaton, which was at that time called Holbrook. While the area was still a part of Cuyahoga County, the township of Eaton was separated from Ridgeville, Its first officers were elected in 1823, while the township was in transition to the new Lorain County. Amherst's township's founding can be traced to one Jacob Shoup. After first settling on the Black River, he moved in 1811 to the Beaver Creek. By 1815, he had erected a grist mill and the area's first distillery. Whiskeyville, today the intersection of Routes 58 and 113, earned its nickname as a center for the production of this important pioneer commodity. As the primary community of the township developed at the Old Spring, it came to be known as Amherst Corners. By 1836, the name Amherstville was recorded in the county offices, and in 1873, the town was incorporated as North Amherst. In 1909, the U.S. Postal Service had to choose between the villages of North and South Amherst. They chose the former, which then became the official and present-day Amherst. In 1917, in the northeast corner of the county, the township of Avon became another of Lorain County's 21 townships to vanish due to city incorporation. In 1814, Wilbur Cahoon had arrived from Montgomery County, New York, to become the first to settle in what was then Troy Township of Cuyahoga County. The farming community grew around its power source, the French Creek. Development along the interurban line would incorporate the northern part of the township into the city of Avon Lake in 1911, with the remainder of the township becoming the village of Avon in 1917. It was families such as the Burrell, Day, and Roots who established themselves in the Sheffield area in 1815 and 16. The township of Sheffield would not actually be created until 1824, when the newly elected Lorain County Commissioners made the township one of the first acts of their administration. The land had been primarily in Cuyahoga County prior to the 1822 reorganization. The southwest corner of the township was in Huron County and is today the only place to find a small section still called Sheffield Township. The remainder of the area has been incorporated, like its neighbor Avon, with the north becoming Sheffield Lake and the south the village of Sheffield. In 1816, Colonel Henry Brown of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, purchased a large tract of land known as Number 6, Range 19. Mr. Brown would later name the township after himself by simply adding Helm to his family name. Like the Old Saxon Ham, the suffix meant home. The Deacon Shepherd family were the first settlers when they arrived on July 4, 1817. The village of Brownhelm Mills, located in Benjamin Bacon's Mill Hollow, was one of 3 communities to develop. Bacon's Corners, or the center, was 3 miles east of the hollow, while just west of the hollow was Rugby, where stores, a church, a school, and the post office were located. The first settlers to the Grafton Township area were Jonathan and Grendall Rawson in 1816. 10 years later, the Rawsons were forced to build a grist mill, or forfeit their land under their original agreement with the Western Reserve Land Company. Railroads and quarries were the greatest influence on the growth of the village the locals called Rawsonville. The quarrying industry in particular was responsible for the influx of French-Canadian, Welsh, Irish, Polish, and German immigrants. In 1877, when the village was being incorporated, the name Rawsonville was dropped in favor of the railroad station name of Grafton. Originally a part of Elyria Township, Carlisle was settled in 1816 by John Bacon of Windham County, Vermont. When the new Lorain County was being organized in 1822, Carlisle Township became its own entity. LaPorte developed as the township village with Phineas Johnson as the first postmaster and hotel owner. In 1840, Anson Brayman's Carlisle Nursery became the first of its kind in Lorain County. Quarrying was another important industry of the township, as the sandstone blocks were used for city buildings as far away as Toronto. Founding father Heman Ely owned over 10,000 acres of the land that would be developed into the township of Elyria. and the city, which also bears his family name. In 1817, Artemus Beebe headed a work crew that came to establish a new village at the Y of the Black River branches. Mills were constructed and the main street cleared. Beebe's crew also erected a home for Mr. Ely at Broad and East Bridge Streets, and a home for himself across the street, which became the Beebe Tavern. Both structures avoided demolition until well into the 20th century. In 1822, Mr. Ely spearheaded the movement to create Lorain County. He donated the land for the county courthouse, thus influencing the choice of Elyria as the county seat. Mr. Ely's little village would develop into a city with a varied industrial base as well as the center of government for Lorain County. Simon Durand came to America as an interpreter for Revolutionary War hero French General Lafayette. Durand remained in the new nation and in the winter of 1817 moved from New York State to the 160 acres he had purchased south of Brownhelm. 10 years later, the population of the area was enough to support the formation of a new township. With the southern portion ceded to Brighton and the northern portion annexed from Brownhelm, the township of Henrietta was created in 1827. Although New England families represented the majority of settlers to the area in 1818, one of the pioneers was William Welling of Montgomery County, New York. History is not clear if the community was named in honor of Welling or for the famous English Duke of Wellington, hero of Europe's recent Napoleonic Wars. With the coming of the railroad, Wellington grew into an agricultural marketplace, and in fact was the nation's leader in cheese production from 1870 to 1900. The county fair, now located in Wellington, helps to continue the depiction of small-town America shown in native son Archibald Willard's famous painting, The Spirit of '76. In 1818, Joseph Sage and the family of his son-in-law, John Laborie, journeyed through a severe winter from Connecticut to their new homestead in Huntington Township. More pioneering families came to the area, and by 1822, the population was such that the Medina County Commissioners incorporated the township using the Huntington, Connecticut hometown of many of the settlers as its new name. Lumber, grain, and cheese dominated the local economy. In 1824, when Lorain County came into full operation, Huntington was transferred from Medina County. The citizens of Old Russia Township, that had been first settled in 1818, requested detachment from Black River Township in 1825. The town and college of Oberlin were founded in 1833 and would grow to dominate the area. The Oberlin concept combined a Christian community and a Christian coeducational institute. Through the influence of founders John Shippard and Philo Stewart, New York businessman Arthur Tappan, and noted evangelist Charles Finney, the college would become not only co-ed, but also multiracial and the nation's leader in the abolitionist movement. The independent spirit that created the first Russia Township was evident once again in 1992, as New Russia Township detached itself from Oberlin. In 1820, the Peter Penfield family began the permanent settlement of the area he had first selected in the fall of 1818. Penfield Township's organizational election was held in April of 1825. The first religious service was held in 1826, and the first school was in session in the summer of 1829. The township's first post office put the emphasis on post and not the office. As the Penfields lived well off the established mail route, a hollow tree near the river was used by the local residents for sending and receiving the mail. The township, with its fertile soil, grew into a part of Lorain County's rich agricultural heritage. In the fall of 1820, Abner Loveland, Jr. became the first permanent settler of Brighton. Within a year, the families of Joseph Kingsbury and Abner Loveland, Sr. had arrived, and the new community began to grow. With elections held in the spring of 1823, Brighton Township was being organized at the same time the area was being transferred from Medina to Lorain County. Like much of the new county, Brighton was essentially agricultural. Although Pittsfield's first settlers arrived in 1813, the area was considered too dangerous because of the British and Indian activity connected to the War of 1812. By 1820, the land was surveyed and Milton Whitney became the owner of a large parcel. Whitney arranged for the Waite brothers of Russia Township to become the first permanent settlers in the spring of 1821. By 1831, there were enough residents to request that the county incorporate a township independent of Wellington. Pittsfield was chosen as the township's name to honor the Massachusetts hometown of many of the area's pioneers. LaGrange Township's first settler was Nathan Clark, who in the fall of 1825 established his new homestead on the east branch of the Black River. By the summer of 1826, 14 more settlers had arrived. The name LaGrange, which is French for the farm, was chosen to honor French General Lafayette, as it was also the name of his country estate. In 1827, the area was separated from Carlisle Township and reorganized with elections in April into the new township of LaGrange. By 1875, the center had grown into a village, also incorporated as LaGrange. The pioneer settler of the Camden area was Leonard Clark. Over the next 4 years, other families moved into the area, including Roswell Babcocks, who built the first frame house in 1833. Early on, the area was divided between Henrietta and Brighton townships. In 1835, the new township of Camden was created by the county commissioners and the first elections held in April of 1836. When the first post office was established in 1835, the community was called Panelise. The name was changed to Camden, then later to North Camden. In 1852, the Lake Shore and Michigan Southern Railroad called its station Binghamton, but that was soon changed as the town adopted the name Kipton. Kipton's more important connection to the railroad was a tragic collision in 1891. The wreck was instrumental in the creation of standardized or railroad time. Rochester was the last township within the present-day boundaries of Lorain County to be settled. Stephen Babcock brought his family from Massachusetts in the spring of 1832 to settle on land he had prepared the previous year. The area grew quickly, and by 1835, the commissioners formed a new township with the first elections held in April of 1836. The township's farming and related businesses grew with the population. By 1880, close to 700 citizens lived in the area. The population shifted from Rochester Center to Rochester Station when the Big Four Railroad came through the township. The small-town boom would turn to bust when the railroad eliminated Rochester as a scheduled stop. The depot would be used as a schoolhouse, as the home of the Rochester Rod and Gun Club, and today as the home of the Rochester Historical Society.